The Paycheck Protection Program and Economic Injury Disaster Loan are designed to provide direct incentive and relief for small businesses, for those who are squeezed out, or those who have received loans but have not touched funds yet due to confusion. Your worries and concerns shall be addressed by our SBA District Director and a tax resolution expert in this interview. Let's start with Mr. Victor Parker, the Director of SBA Los Angeles District Office. Welcome, Mr. Parker.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Parker. We have a lot of questions for you from our audience. The first one, what types of companies are getting approved in the Paycheck Protection Program?
Well, here in Los Angeles, as you know, we are the small business capital of the world, and we have so many different industries and markets. And I'm proud to say that all of those industries and markets are being funded by the Paycheck Protection Program. So whether you are a nonprofit organization, a faith-based organization, an independent contractor, perhaps you own a restaurant, we've seen marketing companies, all types of businesses throughout the greater LA area have been funded by the Paycheck Protection Program.
That's great. So all different types of industry sectors, they're all covered.
Absolutely, they're all covered, and that's one of the great things about the CARES Act is that we absolutely opened up as many as possible so that we would have the impact throughout our small business community.
That's wonderful. So for those originally applied and were denied without a reason, what can they do?
So if you were denied, there's a couple of things that you may do. First and foremost, there's still funding available, so you can reapply. I want to make that very clear. So you can do a couple of things. If you're unable to get in touch with the original lender that you applied through, you may take your application documents to another lender to have them take a look at your application to see whether there may be an opportunity for you to reapply through a different lender. Or I would really suggest that you contact one of our SBA resource partners, which have a series of consultants and advisors who will be able to assist you. They can look at your application, provide you with some suggestions as to additional information you may need to provide that will make you eligible for the program. So we have small business development centers, women's business centers, and SCORE chapters throughout the Los Angeles area that I would rely upon and direct your clients to so that they may be able to have a look at that application and see if we can get those folks eligible, not only eligible, but qualified for a loan.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Is it better to apply directly through SBA or through your local banks, as the local banks may favor VIP clients?
That has been a concern. However, for the Paycheck Protection Program, you must apply through one of the SBA participating lenders. You cannot apply for the Paycheck Protection Program directly through SBA. However, I'm happy to say that throughout the country, SBA has added additional lenders, and that's including credit unions, some of our CDFIs that have not traditionally been a part of the SBA loan or lending institutions have now been approved to do Paycheck Protection Program lending. So I would encourage folks to go to sba.gov, and on there is a list of active lenders by state, and you can certainly contact any of those lenders and go back and make your application through them.
Thank you. Excuse me. At the very beginning, your voice was a little bit breaking up. You said they cannot apply through the SBA?
That is correct. You cannot apply for the Paycheck Protection Program directly with the SBA. You must go through an SBA participating lender.
Understand. The rules for PPP loan forgiveness have been changing even weeks after the program was launched. And in many cases, business owners already received assistance. What's your advice for the business owners who have received funds early on?
So if you've received your funds early on, what I would suggest you do, as you've indicated, some of the rules and regulations are continuing to evolve and develop. So make sure that you document very thoroughly not only when you received your loans, but how you've used your loans. Document, 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 so that you can make sure you have all the current information of how you use those proceeds. In case some of those rules or regulations change, you'll be able to submit your documentation to show what you have done up until this point, and continue to monitor those changes as they come out. SBA.gov, we update our frequently asked questions on a regular basis. And so as new information comes out about the Paycheck Protection Program, the forgiveness, as well as the rules, please use that as a resource so that you'll have the most up-to-date information. And then as you're using your funds, the importance of documenting those proceeds and how you've used those proceeds will be very important if you need to make adjustments as the rules evolve.
We should always keep this in mind. There's one business owner. He is a sole proprietor. He said, I was just notified that I would receive an EIDL loan for $25,000 on condition that I need to provide collateral. Can I request for a lower amount of loan without providing any collateral?
Yes, so there is when you go back to the portal for that particular individual, you can request a lower amount because you're indeed correct. If you have a lower amount, then the collateral is not required as a general rule for the economic injury disaster loan. And so you may do that. So when you receive your loan documents, there should be a portal and a login for you as a business owner. So at that particular point, you would go back in and contact your assigned loan officer to make that request.
That's great. For those who have received unemployment insurance or PUA, can they still apply for PPP or EIDL loans?
So if you have received those, you can still apply for those loans. You will have to document within your use of proceeds. However, once you are funded, those folks that either have employees or they themselves receive that, they will need to make sure that they document when they have received the loans and how those loan proceeds are used as it relates to their payroll to make sure that they qualify for the forgiveness portion.
So, Mr. Parker, what else would you like to share with us about PPP and EIDL loans?
The economic injury disaster loans, obviously this is the first time that we've had all 50 states declared at the same time. And so they are taking a little bit longer to get those approved and processed. So I encourage you to continue to monitor your email. That's the best way that they will be able to communicate with you. So continue to monitor your email on a regular basis for updates on the status of your loan. And then if you have been denied for an economic injury disaster loan, in your denial letter, they will give you some information on how to be reconsidered or to reapply. There are opportunities for you to reapply, even if you've been denied for the economic injury disaster loan directly with SBA. So I encourage you again to take that information and perhaps go to one of our resource partners to see if indeed we can overcome the reasons for the denial. As it relates to the Paycheck Protection Program, be really careful. There are a lot of predatory lenders out there. And so I would really encourage folks, if you've been contacted by a lender directly perhaps, or by someone who has indicated that they can help you with a Paycheck Protection Program for a small fee or something of that nature, before you share any of your personal identifiable information, please contact the SBA district office, and you can email us at lado@sba.gov. Again, that's LADO, which stands for Los Angeles District Office, at sba.gov. And that way we can make sure that that particular lender has actually been approved to participate in the Paycheck Protection Program. We really do not want people to be taken advantage of by predatory lenders during this critical time as we respond to the pandemic. And so that will be one of the key things I would suggest you do, particularly if it's a bank that you're not familiar with, that you've not heard about before, and you did not get that particular lender's information from a reliable source.
Thank you so much, Mr. Parker, for your valuable time and important information shared with us.
Thank you for having me. Stay healthy, stay safe, everyone.
We also invited a tax resolution expert, Mr. Stephen Brunet. We would like to hear his advice of the Paycheck Protection Program from his perspective. Welcome, Mr. Brunet.
Thank you, Julia. Thanks for having me on your show.
Mr. Brunet, as a tax resolution expert, you have been guiding your clients how to maximize amount of forgiveness. Would you please share with us your insights here?
Absolutely, I'd love to. That's a great question. It comes down to documentation, documentation, documentation. And a lot of business owners aren't detail-oriented, but this is one time they really need to be. So, for instance, let's say you get a loan for $25,000. You need to show 20,000 of it, or 75% of it, was used for payroll. So what that means is you need to pay the people, whether it's yourself, like if you're an S Corp, you may just pay yourself and may not have any employees, but you need to pay yourself in the 8-week period from the time you are actually given the loan. 8 weeks forward, you need to pay yourself 75% of the $25,000, which would be $20,000. And they're going to want to see documentation showing that you actually paid the payroll taxes were withheld, and they were paid. That way you can have 75% of the loan forgiven. And then the other 25% will be more documentation showing that you spent money on utilities, on internet, on rent. And if you spend it on rent, they're going to want to see a copy of your rental contract or your lease contract for your office or your store or your restaurant, whatever it may be. So then that whole loan can be converted from a loan to a grant, which is beautiful.
The PPP loan carries a maturity of 2 years and a 1% interest rate. How will it impact taxpayers over the next 2 years?
That's a good question, because people are going to be asking that question come tax time, and they're going to find out they didn't do their homework and they're not going to be prepared. So a couple of things. If, let's say, an S Corp, sole member, just a single person that owns an S corporation, they've never had payroll before, this is one way the government is getting them to get themselves on payroll, so they have what they call reasonable compensation, and they're not messing with estimated payments or getting stuck at the end of the year when they file their taxes and not having the money. This way it's automatically being withheld. So let's say that they didn't do anything to get the loan forgiven. So for the first 6 months from the day they received the money, they don't have to pay anything. But then over the next 18 months, let's say they owe $20,000, they're going to have to pay about $1,100 every single month just to pay that loan off. Now, the positive thing is if you didn't get your loan converted to a grant, then you get to use those deductions for payroll or for other business expenses on your tax return. However, if you use that, let's say $20,000 out of $25,000 to pay payroll to get your loan forgiven, to get it converted to a grant, then you won't be able to use those same expenses when you do file your taxes. So then you'll end up owing taxes on that $20,000. And let's say you're in the 20% tax bracket, you're going to have to pay $4,000. And taxpayers and business owners may not be prepared to pay another $4,000. So they're going to be calling folks like me in a panic, and they're going to want to have some kind of installment agreement or some kind of forbearance, but they're going to have to deal with it. So this is something that I think a lot of business owners are going to be caught by surprise come a year from now.
Thank you, Mr. Brunet, for your valuable insights here. This is AMAT View. Thank you for watching the COVID-19 pandemic version of our program.